All right, welcome into Pod to Win the Game. I am Charles Robinson here today with Four Verts himself, Charles McDonald. It's the Charles Squared Show once again. NCAA final tonight. By the time people hear this, it will be over. Make your prediction. I want to know. UConn's going to beat the living hell out of San Diego State, right?
I lost interest the second that buzzer beater went in. No, because I was ready. Off of watching no college basketball this year and just looking at FAU's record, they were going to be like 37-3 if they had won the tournament. I was going to call them the greatest college basketball team of all time. And once that silly take disappeared, I lost interest.
Were you thinking this is like a meet me at the logo? I can fit this in my column somehow.
Yeah, I was going to think like I can use this for work somehow. FAU, greatest college basketball team of all time, 37-3. Argue with the numbers.
It got scuttled.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna delve into the women's college basketball controversy, but
it's not a big controversy.
I will just say this: yes, if you talk and then later someone else talk, I don't care when it is in a game. What goes around comes around. Life's a circle, and so is talking. Okay,
yeah,
that's all you need to know. So shut up.
I also feel like the players don't care about this as much as like people watching it do. It's like if you play the game and you talk and you lose and someone talks it back to you, you know what's going to happen. But yeah.
Let's just move on. Again, I don't want to get into it. I'm not even going to bring our audience into that mess. But let's move on to we got a lot to do in this show. Unfortunately, Jory wasn't able to join us, but we're going to talk through some little news nuggets, and then we're going to get to like a dark horse prediction show since we saw a Final Four with a bunch of teams that we didn't think would be there. Maybe we'll look at the AFC, the NFC, and kind of give you, Charles and I will both kind of give you our dark horse thoughts on that, as well as some things like MVP, rushing leader, receiving leader, coach of the year, that kind of stuff. But first and foremost, I wanted to talk about Aaron Rodgers because I'm continuing to kind of watch this thing and figure out what exactly is holding this up. And now it does look like this is potentially going to drag on to the draft unless Aaron Rodgers pushes it and tries to show up for the workout program on April 17th. Previously reported that 2 second-round picks are on the table from the Jets. One of those second-round picks in 2024 could graduate to a first based on how 2023 ultimately pans out. And the Jets were holding out basically for a 2025 draft give back if for some reason Aaron Rodgers doesn't play after the 2023 season, right? So two sides looked at each other. They were deadlocked on that. Had a chance to talk to somebody inside the Packers. And what I was told was they are really actually pretty adamant about wanting a first-round pick in the 2024 draft. Without escalators, without anything attached to it, they just want a first-round pick in the 2024 draft. That is what's kind of creating chaos right now. Because even if the Jets say, hey, you don't have to give us a give back, in 2025, you know, we'll still set up that pick in 2024 to graduate into a first from a second or whatever. The Packers are very adamant they want a 2024 pick. But the problem here now for the Jets is they're going through sort of the risk scenarios. And in that scenario, they're sitting there going, okay, but what if Aaron Rodgers plays in 2023, you know, in the 15th game of the season, he tears his Achilles? Right? Or he, you know, breaks his collarbone at the beginning of the year or whatever, and it destroys basically their ability to have either a playoff run or, God forbid, if it happens at the beginning of the season, what's that 2024 draft pick going to look like if he blows out an ACL in game one? Now you don't have Aaron Rodgers, right? And you're rolling with, for all intents and purposes, Zach Wilson for the balance of 2023. And now you've given Green Bay a hard first-round pick with no qualifiers on it. It's just a straight first-round pick. Well, all of a sudden, Green Bay's, you know, potentially sitting there. And if this is bad enough, staring at, I don't know, maybe a top 10 pick. I mean, I wouldn't think the Jets would be that bad, but I mean, who knows?
It's possible.
And what do you and I know about the 2024 draft? There's some stud-ass quarterbacks at the top of the 2024 draft. So that, to me, right now, from what I understand from talking to somebody at the Packers, that's kind of the holdup. They really, even though Brian Gutekunst came out and said, we don't necessarily need a first round pick, or what he was referring to was the 13th overall pick in this year's draft. I do think they want a first round pick. They just, if they have to, are willing to push that to 2024, but they don't want anything tied to it. That's kind of what's going on right now and has these two sides deadlocked.
This trade is really interesting to me from the standpoint of like, I understand the argument on both sides of like why both sides have been hesitant to pull the trigger, on the trade. Like looking from the Packers standpoint, Aaron Rodgers didn't have his best season last year, but he did win the MVP back-to-back years, in the very, very recent future. It'd be nice to be able to get, be able to say that you got a first-round pick back in return for Aaron Rodgers and someone who's been, playing at MVP level and very, very, very recently. And on the Jets side, like, there's definitely a scenario where Aaron Rodgers like even plays this year and then retires after the season. And it'd be smart to kind of protect yourself from that scenario too, because let's say Aaron Rodgers plays this year and you get to like the wild card or divisional round, but you end up losing and he retires. You still need a quarterback, Yep. And it would help to have that 2024 first to, like, if someone falls for you, or to use that as ammunition to trade up and go get someone, or find another talented veteran. It's kind of tough to see where each side like would be wrong in the negotiations, because I think they both kind of make sense in how they're approaching it. And I just want this to be over. Like,
yeah, no, we've talked about this,
we've talked about it to death. But I kind of wonder, like, if you're Joe Douglas after a while, are you just saying, hey, just push all the chips in here? Because what happens if they miss the playoffs regardless? Is he on the hot seat for that? I don't know. Maybe at some point you just get tired and say, screw it, let's go for it.
I think that's where the owner matters. And it also matters that here's the thing though. It matters on both ends because there's no owner in Green Bay who can step in and go, knock it off. This is ridiculous. If we're going with Jordan Love, give the kid the confidence that it's his team and don't stop screwing around with this. Stop making Matt LaFleur answer these questions every time he walks out anywhere. And then you mentioned Woody on the Jets side. That's the other side of the coin, is you got a Jets owner who's sitting there going, hey, I already have a general manager who doesn't want to give her up a first round asset. I don't either, it's whatever the case. This is where it is. It's deadlocked. It's all about risk right now. I think there's a chance that the Jets go, hey, we don't need to give back from 2025, but we're definitely not just giving you a hard and fast one for 2024, because God forbid something terrible happens and then all of a sudden you put the Packers in, potentially in range to maybe trade up and grab a Caleb Williams or Drake May, or if everything possible goes wrong,
just to sit there and take them.
maybe they just sit there and take them right in the top couple of picks. So it's worth watching. Again, April 17th is when the workouts start for Green Bay. That's a date to watch. And then if we get beyond April 17th, it's going to butt right up against the draft. And there's just no way in my mind the Packers deal Aaron Rodgers and don't want an asset in this draft. You want to deal him before this draft because you want to give Jordan Love another asset. You're like, if we're going with Love, let's take a second round pick and let's invest that in the offensive line, in a skill position piece to help Jordan Love succeed. That's what's really important here. So the Tennessee Titans, this is going to be interesting because not only have the Tennessee Titans been grinding pretty hard on this quarterback class, I think they're also starting to look, from people I've talked to, they're starting to look afield and see if there might not be a place where Ryan Tannehill could fit on another NFL team. Now, I'm not saying they're shopping Tannehill here, okay? I want to be real careful here. They're not saying they're shopping Tannehill. But I do think that they are starting to look and say, if we can somehow get ourselves in position to potentially draft inside the top 5, 4, 3 picks, somewhere in there, and take a quarterback, do we have a place for Ryan Tannehill? Is there someone out there who will give us basically anything to take this guy on at this point, take him off our hands? And I think they're pretty serious about it, which tells me Malik Willis is. I would just say the opinion of Mike Vrabel, maybe the coaching staff, is that he's much further away than maybe initially they might have thought when Malik Willis was drafted. Either that, or they just see a quarterback asset at the top of this draft that's much better, a much better option, and maybe a quicker option than Malik Willis would be in terms of that overall development.
I don't think that this should be that surprising given what happened at the end of the season for the Titans, right? When they signed Josh Dobbs off the street to start a must-win game instead of letting Malik Willis, get an opportunity. And I feel like, as far as development goes, like that's a spot that you might want to see a young quarterback in to see how they perform against a division rival, and didn't really even get the opportunity. And when he played last year, like, to be fair, like, it's understandable why they didn't give him the opportunity based on what he looked like when he played last year. I don't think he hit over 100 yards in any of the games that he started. So to me, this looks like they're looking at Malik like, you're a little bit too far away. We still have some veteran pieces on defense for this team. Maybe we can go out there and get a quarterback. And also, if you're looking at the division that you play in, your quarterback situation is quickly about to become, at least the least promising. Maybe not the worst for this year, but Jacksonville, they have Trevor Lawrence. That's something you're going to have to deal with for the next
Houston, they're going to take the
Indianapolis can take a quarterback at 4.
Yep.
And then you find yourself sitting there with, damn, we got Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson or Will Levis in the division. And all we have is, aging Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis. It makes sense why they kind of want to get up in there, just because that's about to be like a hotbed for talented young quarterbacks in the NFL, and doesn't look like they have one right now.
So now the question becomes, let's say, and there are a lot of moving parts here for Tennessee to really do anything. But let's say the moving parts fall into place. They can figure out a way to get. I would suggest you would have to get into the top 3 probably, unless you like Levis. You're trying to get in the top 4, but you're not. But Indy's not trading with you, right? Indy's taking a quarterback at 4, so you really got to get to 3, right? If all that works out and you find a way to get to 3, and then you start to look and say, where could we send Tannehill? Looking outward, where do you think he fits? Some people are going to look at Atlanta because they're going to say, hey, look, obviously head coach in Atlanta has a background in with Tennessee, Arthur Smith. Yeah, I don't really see that. I mean,
they're not Heineke, so.
Well, and not only that, you're not turning away from Ritter, right? Like Ritter's, you're not going to bring in a guy that, is somehow going to take something away from Ritter. So my question is, where else do you possibly, he doesn't go to Green Bay because Green Bay is going to have Love, right? They want to try the Jordan Love thing. Look around the NFL. I mean, where do we see an opportunity for Ryan Tannehill at this point?
Man, I mean, maybe it depends on the price too, right? Like maybe Tampa Bay, Washington, if they're lying about, we're all in on the Sam Howell experience. But you're right. Like when you look around the NFL, there's a lot of quarterback talent in the league right now, I think. And there's a lot of teams that at least feel settled with what they have for this year. So it's not like there's a whole lot of landing spots for them unless you're looking for a team that wants insurance. I thought Tannehill made sense as like a spot for Atlanta. Like maybe you can come in and compete with Ritter for the job because that is still a team that's far away. But then they signed Taylor Heineke to be Ritter's backup. So even that is kind of a cross-up spot for Ryan Tannehill. So I don't know where you put him.
Maybe Baltimore, if Baltimore moves Lamar. I mean, it's just for some of these teams, it's like, well, what would they then want to do because and this is all assuming Rodgers is going to get to the Jets, right? Which puts Jordan Love in place. They really want to, give that a shot. In terms of when we look at all these other teams, the problematic part for the Titans, if they can somehow pull all of this off and they want to, they get to that point where they're like, hey, we really want to do this. I don't know who wants to give up or bring in a veteran. It just would be tricky. Like if you're going with Sam Howell, I don't know that you want to bring in a Ryan Tannehill. I don't know if you're going with a young player like a Jordan Love. If you want to bring in a Ryan Tannehill to potentially fiddle with that, maybe if you're New England, because if you're sitting there and you're going, hey, Mac might not work out. We want Bailey to compete with him for the job, but we also got to look at Bailey last year. Maybe we need a vet in here who, if we get off to like a 0-4 start, maybe we need a veteran who can step in now. It's just tricky.
it's tricky. I think another tricky part for a Tannehill trade is like figuring out with Ryan, are you okay with being a backup now? Because I don't know if that's a spot. I don't know if that's a spot that he's ready to go to, or if it's necessary for him to take a step back, because he got hurt last year. It's not like he was completely terrible before he got hurt and their season kind of ended up on life support. But when you start looking around the league for, all right, well, Ryan, where can you go compete for a starting spot? And like, this is just without, what politics are at play in terms of, who do coaches want to see develop and stuff like that. Is it even 5 teams, like Washington, Tampa Bay, New England, maybe like Miami, going back to Miami for tour insurance. There's not really a whole lot of spots for Ryan Tannehill to go to, and that's kind of a tough spot in moving him. But, they could even look at this and say, even with Ryan Tannehill on the roster, we can still go make a move because Malik's too far away, and the other teams in the division are about to be super steady at quarterback.
It's just a landmine when you look out there, and there just is not, I think, a real simple, easy fit given how other teams are directing themselves at this point. Like, maybe you could make a case for like Houston saying, okay, let's get a veteran in here. He's going to know it's just a 1-year thing for us. And it'll give us a chance to not necessarily have to push Bryce Young or CJ Stroud out there immediately, right? That's the funny thing is, I would say, well, where is Richardson going? And I'm kind of like, well, if they move to 3 and say they draft Richardson, maybe they should just keep Tannehill because then, because I think Richardson, everybody I talk to, everyone says the same thing. I will say this, since his pro day, I had a chance to circle back with some people, and I would say their assessment warmed a bit, but they all seem to agree that if he goes in the top 5, the scary thing is that's a guy where it'll be like there will be pressure to play him right away, and that's not really what anybody envisions for him. They're like, he needs a year to adjust, get him reps, but you don't want to push him out there as this expected, starting top 5 pick, and he's got to produce right away. And then, if what worst case scenario, what you really want is maybe like a Kenny Pickett situation where you're like, we'll see how he looks over the course of the season and then maybe start the guy. But
I'm Anthony Richardson pilled. I think he can do it. I think he can do it.
Well,
I got obsessed the other day and I watched like 10 Florida games and I was like, I'm feeling a little different about this, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I mean, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I was a Josh Allen's got to sit for a year guy. I was like, there's no way, given how erratic he is, in terms of the completion percentage, the level of play, all these different things. What was it? Who did he play? Ole Miss? Like he had like a game where he threw like a gazillion interceptions.
Yeah.
When he played a Power 5 team, like it was, I can't believe it's escaping my memory now. And then he came in and I was like, okay, well, he's definitely going to have to work on the accuracy end of it. But I see why they rolled him out there year 1. Maybe I would feel the same way about Richardson if they rolled him out there after, like immediately. One other kind of interesting little nugget. So Drew Rosenhaus is representing Jalen Carter, right? Obviously, everybody knows the deal with Jalen Carter, the Georgia defensive tackle, who was involved in. He was in the vicinity of a wreck in which a teammate and another Georgia staffer were killed, and then another teammate and another Georgia staffer were injured. He was accused by the authorities, but now settled the situation with authorities in Georgia of basically road racing, right? So that's all squared away now. I have had a chance to talk to. I had 2 teams that spoke to him at the combine, and they did not relay a positive experience. Now, I will say this. Last year, Kayvon Thibodeau, I had some teams like basically said like, hey, here's what didn't go well. This didn't go well. We didn't like this part of the interview. Felt like he was going to slide. Didn't slide. Goes to the Giants. We watch him play and we're like, yeah, okay. like this is, like he gonna be all right. Right.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, I don't know if I should believe this. it gives me pause with Jalen Carter, but I'm just telling you, I've had 2 teams that talked to him that said they did not have a positive experience. They felt like when they talked to him at the combine, and that they felt like there was a chance that that's why there's this slide talk out there, that he's not necessarily going to be a top 5 pick. Neither of them knew whether or not he could potentially slide out of the top 10. Obviously, Drew Rosenhaus thinks he's not, because he's no longer visiting teams outside the top 10. You usually only do that when you have some kind of guarantee from a team in the top 10. Specifically, though, both teams said the same thing. They got into the nitty-gritty of what happened at Georgia, and they felt like he was not being just completely straightforward with them. Like, they felt like there was more to it, and they did not. I think they did not like this idea that they're going to have to return to him later and be like, hey, okay, so you said X, here's what we found, and it's Y, and now that gives us a lot of pause about you. He may not slide at all, but I do think it's interesting, though, that 2 teams that I trust both kind of said it wasn't great. You know, maybe he should have waited until later to talk to people instead of coming back to the combine and doing it, which they were giving him high marks for, at least coming back and facing it. But then when he kind of went through it, they were all kind of questioning whether it might have been a bad idea.
Like, you're going to get to a point where you're running down the draft board and you're just like, dude, we're picking just way worse players than he is.
Right.
Because he is amazing. But the fact that I think the fact that we're even having this talk, like, could he still go in the top 5 with all of the stuff that's gone on in the past month, kind of speaks to how good he is as a football player. Right. And I tend to think that that's going to win out at the end of the day, but like, it's hard not to be a little concerned, especially, you know, showing up to the pro day at like over 320 pounds. And I tend to give him some grace just because, like, I don't know what it would be like to go down and face charges for, you know, being involved with the death of a couple of your friends and then turning back around and going back to like a highly stressful job interview a few hours later. So I don't know exactly what went on with that, but I tend to think he's going to be like one of these case studies where it's like, if you're good enough, we might pull the trigger anyway, because he's too good. Like, he just watched some of these games, like Tennessee game, the LSU game, even some of the college football playoff stuff. He's one of those guys that can be like an all-pro pretty much off the bat if things turn out right for him. Interesting
one thing about him, though, limited window in terms of how, like, total production, the amount of snaps he was playing. We're not looking at someone who, it's not like, let's say, I'm here in Houston. It's not like Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver showed up at Houston, instant starter. He's on the field as much as they can keep him on the field, ton of snaps, and then does that for 3 years by the time he ultimately gets out. That's not what happened here, okay?
He did play with 5 first-rounders, last year.
No, he did, okay? Like, I understand that, and there was a reason why, clearly, when you talk about the limited snaps, was because, the defense was freaking loaded, and it's really hard to get on the field when you have that many first-round picks, and so you become part of a rotation. But I'm just saying, if you're sitting there and you're trying to assess it completely, right? If you did this, it's just like Richardson, right? Like, Richardson, people are like, well, okay, we're really looking at 1 year here, you know, like, and it's different. You know, Carter obviously very dominant. You know, some people are going to say, well, he only had 3 sacks. I'm like, all right, he's also on the interior. He's getting doubled constantly.
And he had an ankle injury for the first half of the season.
And he had an ankle injury, right? Yeah. So I don't think he falls out of the top 10, but he is, to me, it will be an interesting story to watch. I think Richardson will be an interesting story to watch. I think Jalen Carter will be an interesting story to watch inside that top 10.
I think landing spot, it's going to matter a lot for Jalen. I know this would be like the dream connection for me, but I feel like he needs, you know, when you go through something like that, it kind of helps to have, I think, vets when you get to a spot when you're drafted. I think about Atlanta, like with Grady Jarrett and Calais Campbell there.
I know you think about Atlanta.
Yeah.
I know you didn't have to tell me that you think about Atlanta.
That'd be a good spot. Also, Seattle at 5. Like with Pete, Jalen wouldn't be the first guy that's had some problems that they've taken on.
And it's funny because you and I are both going to look like homers here, because I'm going to say Detroit at 6, because I'm like,
our teams are bad. nothing wrong with something like Jalen
Well,
Carter.
you if you're Detroit, you're sitting there going, okay, we kind of feel good on the defensive ends that we have. We got a couple of young defensive ends. Now we can bring him in and maybe we can put him next to Aiden Hutchinson. And I also think you got a head coach there who is very much he's a buy-in with players kind of guy. Like he's very much I'm behind you. I'm there for you. And maybe that's a little what Jalen Carter needs right now, given everything that's happened. And so we'll keep tabs on that. We still got about less than a month. The draft's already less than we're flying in the
April 3rd, baby.
God, man, this is crazy. I do want to get though to this idea of sort of dark horses next season. Look at the NCAA finals. We see all these seeds in the Final Four we couldn't have expected being there. I'm kind of curious. I wanted to ask you, AFC, we'll go AFC, NFC. We'll each give one team that you could see potentially coming out. And I mean like wild. Okay. So like in the NFC, don't be picking Detroit. Okay. Like Detroit's got some, they're on the come up, even though they didn't make the playoffs last year. Everybody kind of sees where they're going. I'm talking about a what the hell just happened kind of scenario. Almost like, let's say, we never would have thought the Giants became what they became last year, right? That was definitely a what the hell scenario. Sort of similar to that. Give me an AFC team. We'll start with the AFC that you think you sit there and you stare at it and you go, no one would ever pick this, but I could see a reason why or reasons why this team could potentially stack it up the way the Giants did and suddenly become just a shocker.
Okay. Coming from the standpoint of this is going to sound kind of crazy, and that's the point of this exercise. How about the Indianapolis Colts? To me, I look at their team last year as like some of the weirdest damn underachieving that I've ever seen in my entire life for a multitude of reasons. Like an offensive line that has multiple good players on it, like players that we've seen be good for a long time, including Quentin Nelson, stepped down. Ryan Kelly didn't have his best season. Obviously, the quarterback position was an absolute mess for them last year between Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger. The defense was good. I don't really see a reason why the defense would fall off this year. And you never know what Jim Irsay, but I doubt that they'll be pulling someone off of TV to coach their season coach the team for the back half of the season. You'll have some coaching stability there. And I just think, the Colts, like, they're one of these teams that you look at their roster, it's like, man, it's kind of crazy that they ended up picking 4th overall last year. But, they had the quarterback issues, the coaching issues. And I think if I'm going to take a home run bet and, on BetMGM, the odds for the Colts as AFC Championship are plus 6,000. The only team with the worst odds are the Texans at plus 12,500. So, yeah, my home run pick would be the Colts. And I'm just excited for someone to cut this in like 8 months and say, you idiot. Like, you thought that Will Levis was going to lead the Colts to the playoffs, man? So, yeah, Colts plus 6,000. That'd be my pick.
Well, if they turn this into a video, for sure, you're going to get the old takes exposed treatment. You're going to get here's Charles. Like, yeah, absolutely. You really took this to heart, though. I mean, the only way this was getting worse is you picked the Texans. So basically, I can't trump you on this one. No matter, I'm not picking the Texans, okay? Like, I'm not that crazy. So I actually, I can see, look, the offensive line was so horrible last year. That's the thing. They're not bereft of talent. They need a quarterback. They do have some skill position talent. They got
Jonathan Taylor still.
Jonathan Taylor can still be a dominant runner. Like, he's still young. Jonathan Taylor can still, and he was, banged up last year. He can still be a dominant run-oriented team. And then, as you said, like defensively, that was one of the things we were supposed to like. And so, yeah, I don't think that's completely out of left field. I wasn't going to quite go that crazy.
Not that out of left field, but you weren't going to go that crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like that would have been picking. I mean, right? That would have been like the FAU pick, right? Like, that's basically like, that's the pick that absolutely no one saw them getting to this point. I actually think the Browns have a really good team. I think the Cleveland Browns, when you look at their 2 deep on their roster, plus the fact that they're going to continue to add pieces in this draft, I think the Browns have, They have a very talented team. Like you think like you go 7-10 last year, and it felt like a year where like everything went wrong for the Browns, right? Like, didn't it just feel like I'm like, wow, they won 7 games when it was pretty much
the vibes were bad for a lot of reasons.
For a lot of reasons, right? Yeah, and they didn't, yeah. And when Deshaun Watson showed up, it wasn't like it just got better all of a sudden. It really didn't. And
then people started rooting against them and stuff,
Yeah, and if anything, I mean, I think even it may have gotten worse because fans in Cleveland were like, wait a minute. He kind of looks like far away from that player he used to be. Like some of this looks like maybe it's rust, but some of this doesn't look like it's rust. Some of it looks like he's got a lot to catch up on. And, I think that was something that's hung over that team. But listen to this. Okay. So here's, obviously you got Watson. So let's suspect he may take a big step forward or a bigger step forward than he did last year. I'm not saying he's going to be 2020 Deshaun Watson, but he's going to take a big step forward. You got Nick Chubb, right? Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones is solid wideout. You add Elijah Moore, who did some things with the Jets, obviously his rookie year. We really liked.
He's a good player.
Yeah, good player. David Njoku, who had his breakout season, I think last year as a tight end. Offensive line is good. It's a good, solid offensive line. Conklin, Teller, Batonio, Jedrick Willis. We'll see.
Okay.
I mean, but I mean, it's the offensive line it's not sitting there and it's like a bare cupboard. Okay. It's
probably the best guard duo in the league.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I think that's the best guard duo. Now, defensively, that's where you get a little nervous. Okay. Because they need help at defensive tackle significantly, right? Myles Garrett's Myles Garrett. You're asking yourself, who is the pass rusher we're going to be able to pair with him? So, to me, that matters. Now, you get Anthony Walker Jr. back in the fold. That was for him to lose him to injury last year was a huge deal for the Browns. I mean, he was such a important piece to them leadership wise. So I think getting him back on the field makes a big, it's a solid piece that probably was missed more than people outside of Cleveland might have understood. When you look at the secondary, I like Greg Newsome. I think Greg Newsome's going to continue to get better. I love that they brought in Juan Thornhill. I think Grant Delpit, they're going to continue to work and try to get this
try to make that something.
Yeah, but it's funny because they really, really in the past have liked Grant Delpit a lot, a lot, and it's just for some reason it's just not gotten there. And this, I don't know that this would necessarily be the last chance, but he's getting very close to you got to turn a corner there. And then Denzel Ward. You got JOK, you have, I think you have pieces, you have talent. I think there's work to do on the defense. I think the offense has got a ton of guys and should be able to score points this season. A lot of it's going to have to do, obviously, though, with Watson taking that step forward. But I think quietly the Browns, their depth, particularly on offense, they look like a really, really good team to me, potentially. And I think most people look at them and just sort of have a negative opinion because they think maybe Deshaun's busted. He's just never going to be a anywhere near what he was previously. I don't know. I just think for some reason I feel like the odds being plus 2,000, I guess plus 2,000. But when you look at the plus 2,000 odds, the teams around them that are at plus 2,000, then you have the Broncos. I mean,
yeah,
you're banking on Sean Payton. You're banking on basically at that point the coach was just the absolute. He ruined everything on that team, and Sean Payton's going to come in and everything's going to change.
You're also banking on no defensive fall off too,
and no defensive fall off. And next to the Broncos, next to the Broncos, the Raiders. So the Browns are kind of in the same class as the Raiders in the AFC. I just don't see it. I don't think they should be much better than the Raiders are next season. And yet it's the difference between plus 2,000 and plus 2,200. It's wild to me. Not quite as fancy as your Colts pick.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Colts pick was way too aggressive for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm looking at the NFC teams. I don't think I have one that's quite as aggressive as that.
All right. Okay. Well, let's swing to NFC. Give me your NFC team.
Okay. I don't know if this problem probably isn't quite as crazy as the NFC. And I think that looking at the NFC teams, holy crap, this division is not nearly as good as the AFC right now.
Just look at the quarter. Literally, go down
the quarterbacks.
Think of the quarterbacks. It's ridiculous.
And they're about to lose one, Aaron Rodgers, allegedly. But okay, I just have to get that joke off because I'm really just over all of the Aaron Rodgers stuff, and I'm gonna have to try to bite my tongue when I go to his introductory press conference. But speaking of Aaron Rodgers, Packers, I think for my dark horse pick in the NFC, for whatever that means in this conference, that would be my pick. I kind of think Jordan Love. I don't know why I think this, but I kind of think he's going to be okay. The offensive line is still pretty solid. And if they can add like another wideout, like I think if they can get Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round this year, with or without the 13th pick, that'll kind of be a slam dunk pick for them, just as like a nice slot receiver prospect for them, for him to kind of grow with. Because they do need some more depth at wide receiver. But I think when you look at the defense, like, they kind of underachieved a little bit last year, but towards the end of the year, they started to pick it up. And I still am impressed with like the talent they've been able to assemble there. And again, like we still haven't even gotten through the draft yet. So maybe I'm too high on Jordan Love. Maybe it's unreasonable given that we've only seen him play a couple games. But I think it's going to be good enough where they can surprise some people. And that'll be my dark horse NFC pick at plus 2,200. Not as crazy as plus 6,000 like the Colts.
Here's the only thing with the Packers that gives me pause is, Matt LaFleur, you're at the owners' meetings. I'm sitting there and he gets asked about Jordan. And I thought, okay, he'll probably tap dance around any quarterback questions, right? Because you got to wait until the Rodgers thing gets done. But instead he engages on Jordan Love, which is, again, that's the direction of the franchise. They want Jordan to be the guy. But he basically was like, we got to temper the expectations here for Jordan Love. Like, he basically was straight up saying, all right, let's pull it back a little bit, which I'm going to be real with you. It's not great when a guy's been in the league 3 years. 3 years grooming for this spot. And you're saying now that he's finally getting that opportunity. And by the way, he was a first-round pick. He's a first-round pick who has been sitting there and developing, we believe, right? Supposedly, been developing for 3 years. And your head coach is like, whoa there. Like, that concerns me. I'm not saying you should go out there and it would be counterintuitive to go out there and just gas them up, right? You don't want to gas them up. But I think you could have just been like, we're encouraged, we're looking forward to getting him out there and getting him these reps and just, speaking, not a like, hey, everybody, just kind of pull it back a little bit, because to me, I'm like, that is suggestive of someone who's sitting there staring at a player and going, yeah, he did come in the game where Aaron, hurt his ribs and, he threw a touchdown pass in which Christian Watson did most of the work, but he looked confident in the little snapshot in that game, right? It's against the Eagles. Problem is he hasn't started a game. Okay. Like, in terms of the team's prepared for him, he's the starter. There's no one else who's going to show up. I know the Chiefs game. Everyone's going to go back to that one. I'm talking about now, the Jordan Love of now. He's going to have to start a game 1. He's going to start a game 2, start a game 3. Like, these are all these things that he hasn't done yet. And I'm sure Matt LaFleur is sitting there going, I don't know what this guy looks like starting for a month. I don't know what he looks like when he's done enough that teams are like, okay, here's what he does really badly. And now let's absolutely expose that.
If he sucks, like, that would be a little funny, right? Like, damn, dude, you've been on the bench for 3 years and you look the exact same.
It ain't gonna be funny to Packers fans. Okay, like, I can tell you, Packers fans are not gonna be entertained.
They're the most spoiled fan base in football. All right, screw Packers fans. Oh no, this is going so bad.
The guy who suffered through a season of Marcus Mariota. He's all pissed off.
And I've seen 28-3. Okay, and these people are crying. Oh no, we've had 20 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. Oh no, get over yourself.
All right, fair enough. My pick, I was actually curious about this because I don't understand where they're fitting in the odds. I think Seattle is a little undersold here. Okay, so they're plus 2,200, but the group that they're in a group with the Packers and the Panthers. I don't know who the hell's starting for those teams. I mean, obviously we know Jordan Love's going to start, but I don't know who the hell's starting for the Panthers. And it looks like it's going to be a rookie, right? We assume with the first overall pick. I thought the Seahawks had a hell of a lot more to love last year than they're getting credit for. Now, the young defensive guys, as the season went on, you saw they started to sag a little bit. It's okay. That happens. There's an adjustment period. Once you get past the 10th game, the 11th game, the 12th game in the NFL, you're like, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be.
This is hard.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be chilling now. Like, what's going on? My bowl game's over. It's in the books. Like, why am I still playing football? I think there's a chance Geno Smith could be better than he was last year because he's had one strong starting year under his belt now. I do think he can build on that. Okay. Maybe we're not seeing his ceiling yet. I think Charles Cross as an offensive tackle I think he's shown he could be a very, very good offensive tackle. So I think there's a chance that he steps forward. I love Kenneth Walker. They got wide receiver. I feel like this is a team that can score some points. Okay. I like that a lot. And to me, you have draft assets in which with that 5th pick, you can add, maybe it's Jalen Carter. You should be able to add an impact piece on either side of the ball. If you're not taking a quarterback, you should be able to add an impact piece that can help. Kayvon Thibodeau was that pick last year, was he 5 or 6?
5.
For the Giants. Was he 5? Yeah. Okay. He was 5. That's what I thought. So Kayvon Thibodeau was the 5th pick last year. If you can get a Kayvon Thibodeau pick, right? That's a really big asset. Plus you're bringing back Bobby Wagner, who I'm not saying Bobby Wagner comes back in and is like the Bobby Wagner of old. They knew that ship has sailed. Everybody knows that ship has sailed. But from a leadership standpoint, from having a connection back to the days when the defense was nothing but alphas in that locker room, I think having him back in there is really good for Seattle. Plus, I mean, the NFC West, the 49ers are murderers. I don't know what's going to happen at quarterback, so that obviously gives me pause because I don't know what Brock Purdy's elbow is going to be like. I have zero idea what's going. I mean, they don't have confidence in Trey Lance right now. Sam Darnold could potentially be the starter at some point. The Cardinals. Anyone think the Cardinals are going to put anything together without Kyler Murray? I think everybody thinks it's a lost season, right? Okay, so that's 2. And then you have the Rams, who, as far as I look at the Rams, they just got worse, right? They're not a better team. And they weren't a very good team than last year. Now, Stafford comes back in. We'll see. That could potentially reinvigorate the offense. It should. But I don't know. That, to me, it's a very... They got a puncher's chance, I think, in that division. San Francisco's defense is going to be all world. I just am always sitting there staring, going, man, I don't know with a quarterback if it's going to have to be the Ravens and Dilfer for them to live up to everything. So
at least they still got Kyle. That matters.
Yeah, no, I mean it does matter, and that's the one reason why I'm sitting there looking at Sam Darnold and I'm like, okay, maybe Kyle can get something out of this guy, man. Maybe if he doesn't, that's probably not great for Sam. It's probably over for him ever sniffing any shot whatsoever.
If you can't do it here, then it's done.
Isn't that crazy though? Like what? How do you see? Explain what do you think the rationale is of the Panthers and the Packers and the Seahawks all being bunched together? I'm just stunned that the Seahawks people don't think more of them coming off of at least some of what we were able to see last year. And by the way, Kenneth Walker got hurt, right? I mean, think of how well they were playing when he was healthy and in there every day. And, I think it drastically changed once he got hurt.
Thinking about the Seahawks and how they can improve this year, they had young guys at positions that are kind of a tough learning curve in the NFL, right? So you have Charles Cross and Abe Lucas. That was your tackle duo last year, 2 rookies. And then you go on defense and you have like 2 or 3 rookies started at cornerback because they had beyond Tariq Woolen, they had Kobe Bryant and Mike Jackson. They were getting some snaps in there too. So,
who all flashed, by the way,
right? They all flashed.
They all did. It wasn't like Woolen was the only guy who you're like, oh, he's a player. They all look like they could be players.
Yeah. So you look at those guys who have a lot of experience already at a tough position to play in the NFL, and they got some playoff experience too. Like, to me, this is a team that could grow up together pretty quickly. And I think the fact that they have a veteran quarterback with Geno is it can kind of accelerate them on that growth path if he continues to play like he did this past season.
So Vegas's pick, like Vegas, they did their own pick without even intending to. But this pick, I was like, are they on crack? Like, I was like, is this even like, is this a fact error? Like, how are the Bears plus 1,800? How are the Bears in front of the Vikings, the Saints, the Giants, the Seahawks?
I don't know. Yeah, the Bears are pretty far away still.
Why is Vegas like? What's going on?
I don't know.
Can you figure that?
That's a pretty overrated roster. If they're rated that highly, I don't think so. Yeah.
What are they? I mean, I guess they think Justin Fields is going to be like, it's going to be like the Lamar Jackson. He's going to have a Lamar Jackson MVP year, basically. Because I was stunned. I'm like, that can't be right.
Yeah, I don't think the supporting cast is that good around it.
They got him in front of the Vikings, the Saints, the Giants. I wouldn't put him in front of the Panthers right now. I don't even know who the Panthers quarterback is, and I don't know who they're going to throw to. Like Terrace Marshall, I guess. I mean, like, just
DJ Chark and Adam Thielen.
I guess you're just sitting there, and do they really think like DJ Moore is? I mean, like I like DJ Moore, and I know okay, they've added a lot of pieces in free agency, but that doesn't necessarily translate. Well, there's Vegas's pick. We'll see out of all of us if this is right on April 3rd. All right, that's it. Let's throw to our ad break, and we'll hear from our sponsors. Come back on the other side. All right, welcome back in. Want to run through real quick. MVP, rushing leader, receiving leader, coach of the year. MVP, who's your MVP? Dark horse MVP.
Dark horse MVP, right? Can't just say, oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, dark horse. And, dark horse MVP.
I think I might make a pick for Trevor Lawrence. Is that dark horse?
Is he a dark horse? Nah. No way. Not with the way he finished.
Okay.
I would say he's a guy that I would put probably in the top four mix for MVP next year. I'll tell you what, I'll give you mine.
How about Derek Carr?
Oh, are you? What the?
That division is terrible, right?
What? Are you serious?
You said dark horse.
I said dark horse, not dead horse. Like, what you think Derek Carr is going to go to New Orleans? Well, look, without Sean Payton there, by the way.
Let's say they get
Dennis Allen as his head coach.
Look who he's playing. It's Ritter, Baker Mayfield, and a rookie. Like,
I know, but those aren't the only other people up for MVP. I mean, he's got the rest of the league.
He has maybe he could get him to 11-6. I don't know.
So you think Michael Thomas? So Kamara's got to be there all year. I would say he's got to catch a lot of passes out of the back.
I don't think anything about
Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. You just guessed. This is good. This deep analysis with Charles McDonald. Yeah. God. Well, then start thinking of your other dark horses now, because that was a terrible. I think my dark horse it's fringy. I'm gonna try and get away with one here. I think it's Tua, and I think he qualifies as a dark horse because I don't think people think Tua is going to finish the season. I don't think so. I think people are looking at Tua and they're thinking he's going to get another concussion and he's just going to be done. Like he's going to be off the field and people are going to start asking whether or not he should continue to play football. I believe that is a fairly large assumption from people at large, that there's something there that is going to happen and it's going to be disturbing and
yeah, I wonder why people would be thinking that.
Well, yeah, look, but here's the thing though. The Dolphins picked up his 5th-year option and pay him a ton of money. Okay, so they clearly believe in it, right? And when you looked at Tua, when Tua started and finished games, not the games he got injured in, but, just take the games that he actually played a full slate, he looked amazing. He absolutely looked like a guy who could potentially be in the MVP race. I would hope that this entire offseason obviously is devoted to, okay, how can we figure out a way to keep a guy from getting concussed? I don't know how you do that. Probably be a good story next year next season when we figure out, if they're keeping him from getting a concussion, what has changed. I heard the stuff about got to fall right. It's just not really seems like a difficult thing to pull off, but that's where we're at. I think Tua, if he plays a healthy full season, I would bet you his numbers are going to be pretty big, and I think Miami should be pretty good. If they're not good after adding Ramsey and Fangio and everything else that they've added over the course of the season, that's going to be a little bit of a disappointment, and it would have to be tied to his health, right?
Yeah, but like you said, I think if he's healthy, like that offense can kind of run itself. I mean, they need a little baseline level quarterback play as we saw last year, but like Tua's the bar for them. If he's on the field, and they can be a team that scores 30 a game, and that's kind of what can get you to the MVP category. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I don't have one besides Derek Carr, so let's just move on.
Pathetic. Just pull one out. I'm going to throw a name out there. All right, rushing leader.
I'm gonna go with.
This is legit, by the way, because literally it could. I mean, there might be 15 guys who could lead the NFL in rushing.
Right. This one's never tough. But I went with Ramondre Stevenson, the Patriots running back.
Oh, okay.
I think like getting Damian Harris out of that backfield is probably pretty good for him and the amount of carries that he's going to receive. And I don't know. I think when I look at this Patriots skill group, I know that they hired Bill O'Brien to come in and fix the passing game, but it doesn't really seem like a group of players that I would want to be throwing the ball a whole bunch with. I know you went out and signed Juju, but it's like Juju, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker at this point. To me, that still looks like a pretty run-heavy offense. So I'm gonna go with Ramondre Stevenson.
I like that. I mean, I could definitely see it being a run-heavy offense, and that's going to be important, obviously, in this. I like Dameon Pierce. I think you have a Houston team that no matter who they end up drafting it to, I think they're going to be devoted to run the ball. Obviously, this is a guy who suffered a pretty bad ankle injury late last year, but he should be good to go. I think that year 2, to me, for a lot of running backs, particularly guys that can handle a heavy load, you see, with all due respect to Josh Jacobs, year 2 to me is when you kind of see that big jump, for guys. So I could definitely see Pierce in that offense, protecting the quarterback, running behind, Laramie Tunsil, ended up being, and I thought Pierce looked fantastic. I would have picked Kenneth Walker, but I didn't think Kenneth Walker was really a dark horse. I thought Kenneth Walker showed enough last year to not be a dark horse. I think people write Pierce off because he plays for the Texans, and they just assume it's the Texans, and I also think D'Amico Ryans knows the value of trying to play good defense, trying not to turn, he's not turning the ball over. If they end up drafting, let's say it's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, I think they're going to try to protect that guy as much as possible. D'Amico's going to be more geared, I think, early on, running the ball, playing defense, just trying to be more of a fundamentally sound football team from that standpoint, not going crazy.
Yeah, and they're going to be trying to do the Shanahan offense too. So
right. So I like Pierce. All right, moving on. Receiving leader. This is an interesting one because, I mean, like, who's like Justin? If it's not Justin Jefferson, it feels like it's like such a small group of guys. Like it's definitely coming from that group. So for a dark horse to actually jump up and take it away from Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill. Yeah, I mean, it's so strong at the top. You really have to be creative to find a dark horse here.
I don't know how much of a dark horse this is, but how about Garrett Wilson, Jets, with Aaron Rodgers?
I like Wilson. He looked great as a rookie.
He looked great last year with some crappy ass quarterback play, man.
Yeah, he did. I like that one a lot, actually. I think that's a pretty good one. I don't think a lot of people would just pencil that in right away, especially being year 2 for him. But with Rodgers.
I mean, there was a game last year. I think it was like the second game when they went to Cleveland and they had like the comeback where Joe Flacco was starting. He balled out, and that was like one of his first games in the NFL. And I never really thought that there was a point like watching him where he slowed down. But when Zach Wilson, when that really started to tank, obviously all the production fell off. But I mean, think about what he went through last year. He still had 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns. So with Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers isn't like laser focused on throwing to something that he already knows in Alan Lazard, then I think that's one of like, especially at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career, I think that Garrett Wilson is kind of like a great receiver that will work with him. Someone who can get open, make plays after the catch, and be someone that can take a high amount of targets like he did already last year.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. He popped, and he looks like as long as he stays healthy and takes a step. I mean, because he just looked, I don't want to say like a finished product, but right out of the gate, every time he was on the field, I'm like, God, he looks so perfect now already. And yeah, I could see him being a guy who takes a big leap the next year. He, in some ways, it kind of makes you think of Jefferson. Wilson, maybe I'd put him just sub that, like not quite on Jefferson's level. Jefferson was just unbelievable. It was ridiculous. But Wilson was pretty damn good. And like you said, that quarterback mix was horrible. And yet he just consistently was the guy out there producing. I have a very dark horse one. It's completely contingent. Odell Beckham Jr. ending up with the Chiefs. I think there is a chance that Odell, if he ends up on the Chiefs roster, ends up being a guy who gets fed. I really do. But it is only if he goes to the Chiefs. The Chiefs need him. They need a primary, just ball eating, catching, red zone, like somebody, because, Kelsey is what he is. He's going to continue to attract what he does on defense. I think when you look at their wide receivers, they sorely need a guy who has high potential. I know Odell's had knee injuries. I get all that. I still think there's a chance he can be a quality player 1 year at a time. And I think he's with Pat. That to me is what could potentially unlock it. It sounds nuts. Most people are going to go, Odell Beckham's not even on a freaking roster right now. And who knows if he's really looking for $15 million a year. But I think he ends up on the Chiefs with Andy Reid, with Patrick Mahomes. I like that. I really do. And I think he'd catch a gazillion balls there, especially when I look at those receivers. I'm just like, he would have to be he and Kelsey are number ones on every single play.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be a good spot for him. And I would love it just because ever since we talked about the other day, like Odell being kind of like one of the what ifs of this era of football, but man, it'd be cool to see him have one nice season again before call it quits. To me, if I played tight end or receiver, that's where I'd be trying to go regardless. Like, especially at this point in Odell's career where, you would think that money shouldn't be like too big of an influence. Like, I think if I was in Odell's position, I would be trying to just get to the spot that helps him be the best football player immediately. And I think that that's Kansas City because he can be the veteran guy in a pretty young receiver group, and they have the best quarterback in the league. So it's worth a shot.
It's also the only shot he has. If he's doing a 1 year deal, I think in his mind, he's still thinking, if I do a 1 year deal and I pop, maybe I can sign some kind of contract that gets me 2 more years of real money. Maybe I can play to 33. I think the only place that you can accomplish that realistically is Kansas City because the need is there, the quarterback's there, the head coach is there. It is so aligned to me for him to end up there. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, that's a second what if we can add to his career. All right, coach of the year.
Brandon Staley, is that dark horse? I think it's kind of like borderline.
They were a playoff team last year, so I would say no.
Did they make the playoffs? Yes, they did. Yeah, they did because they blew that lead to Jacksonville. That's right.
Remember they didn't have the whole Mike Williams thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Wow, that doesn't look good for my pick. I'll go a homer pick. I'll go Arthur Smith. I kind of think this offense is going to pop this year.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. And look, the division's winnable. It's like the same reasoning for why I said Derek Carr for MVP. The NFC South is trash. And like, I think that their toughest test as far as like facing offenses go within the division is going to be Carolina. But I kind of like the pieces that they put around. I think getting Caleb McGarry back was pretty big. Kyle Pitts can be healthy, playing with, at least better passing play than he did last year. And I think one thing that's kind of interesting for the start of the Desmond Ridder era is like the last 4 games, he and Drake London, they had like a crazy connection for the last 4 games of the season, and they were pretty productive. So, it's not like a talentless offense. The defense has a lot of work to do still, but I'll roll with Arthur Smith as dark horse pick because like if they end up winning the division, which is possible, he's probably gonna get some votes.
I'm going with Frank Reich for the same reason. The division's right there for somebody. I mean, pretty much, someone's going to come out of that soup. It could be like I think the division is poor enough that it's sort of like a Brian Daboll situation where it's like you could see them stacking up 10 wins, a lot of it on the strength of maybe beating, a bad schedule. With the Vikings, we would put the Vikings in that. I mean, the Vikings, what's the Vikings strength of schedule? I can't remember. I'd have to look at the Vikings strength of schedule before I compare them. I mean, I don't see them getting to 13 wins, especially not knowing who their quarterback is now. But I think if you draft a rookie, you're going to play the rookie. That's the assumption right now. And you win a division with a rookie quarterback, and they're defensively, I think they're fine. They have a ton of guys to work with. You bring in Ejiro Evero to run the defense. I mean, to me, I think defensively they're great. I just think if Wright can put together the kind of off-season offense and have some functionality with a rookie quarterback and win that division, I think that guy gets a lot of votes. Same though, I agree with you with Atlanta. That's another
same line of thinking.
Yeah, I agree. Atlanta probably, it was real close for me between Atlanta and Carolina. So, all right, yeah, I like those Coach of the Year picks, and they're all going to be wrong. Everything we said is going to be wrong. Every player we picked is going to be hurt.
Yep.
There's a chance we might actually have gotten some of these coaches fired. I mean, I don't, probably not Frank Reich. I wouldn't think after 1 year, but I mean that's probably how.
Hey, it's David Tepper. Anything's on the table.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I can't. Okay, so we're going to be back on Wednesday. We'll see if we can get Jory Epstein in here on Wednesday. Look forward to that. You can get CMAC on Twitter at 4verts. You can get myself at Charles Robinson. You can get Stone Rochelle at SJ Rochelle. And if you could, help us keep Therese Paylor's legacy alive. Check out breakingtea.com/Therese for the all juice tea or hoodie. Remember that proceeds from that purchase go to support the Therese Paylor Scholarship at Howard University. You can support that directly as well as the scholarship in his name at Power Mizzou. You check out our podcast description. We will tell you how to get your money there. If you could, also check out our new NBA podcast, Ball Don't Lie, featuring Vinny Goodwill, Jake Fisher, and Dan Devine, as well as our MLB podcast, Bandwagon, featuring Hannah Kaiser and Zach Kreiser, both available wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review, tell a friend, help us grow the family. We dropped you some news nuggets, some things that haven't really been reported at the top of the show, so please share this episode with fans who do not know about us yet. We'll see you on Wednesday. Peace.